Tonight's platform is going to be shared between Meira Chan and Siok, our wonderful writers over here. But before I pass the mic to them, I do want to also introduce a wonderful writer that is with us, very luckily and very happily, from Cambodia. Where is Chia Vanna? Vanna, there you go. Can you all welcome her? For those of you who may not know of Vanna, she is one of Cambodia's most articulate commentators on the broad spectrum of, the focus tonight is on our featured writers. What we thought we will do today, a little bit different from what we've been doing the past 4 months, is for the two writers to sort of have a conversation between themselves. And if at any point we feel that we need to jump in with any kind of extra or any kind of essential point, we should do that, right? I thought it'd be very nice for maybe if Meira has a book, we can listen to Meira for a few minutes in terms of reading one or two important passages from the book. And then we'll invite Siok to say a few words about her book, since it's not physically with her. And then we'll begin the conversation. That be okay? All right.
And it's really very lovely to see so many of you. So thank you all for coming. Can you hear me? Am I? All right. And since Kipal's asked me to do a reading, I'm going to do a very short one, probably about 15 minutes, if that. And it's from a novel, hopefully some of you will have read, called A Different Sky, which is set in pre-independence Singapore. The book begins in a communist riot in 1927, and it also ends in a communist riot in 1957. And I'm going to read you a passage from the very beginning of the book, and it concerns a character called Howard, who, through the book, his life is followed, along with the lives of many other characters. There seems to be a cast of 1,000 in here. But Howard has, the book begins in this first communist riot, and Howard and his mother are on a trolley bus that has been surrounded by communist activists, and the trolley has been rocked and hit with sticks, and Howard has had a very traumatic time. And during this incident, he has also seen a British police officer attacked and badly wounded. Now Howard is, there are Indian characters, Chinese characters, Malay, but Howard is a Eurasian at a time in Singapore where there was a big Eurasian community. And colour was a great leveller in the Eurasian community. Colour was observed very discriminatory. And Howard is quite a dark-skinned Eurasian, but his father is a very fair-skinned Eurasian and can pass for white. So this is quite an issue for Howard in his life, the colour of his skin. So this is a short passage after the incident on the trolley bus. That night, sleep pulled him under quickly, the weight of his dreams heavy upon him. Howard heard again the shouts of the communists as they rocked the trolley, and remembered the inspector's battered sun helmet upturned in the road, stained with the blood of its own. He awoke with a start to his dark room, listening to the pipes in the belly of Belvedere, this is the house he lives, grumbling with elderly flatulence. Outside, the heavy splatter of rain could be heard, lightning flashed, and thunder froze him where he lay. He found he was bathed in sweat, but dared not move or reach for a glass of water. Although, when the shots were fired, Howard understood his mother's fear as the wounded chief inspector was dragged into the police station, He was disappointed the man was not dead. He did not know who the communists were, but already he felt allegiance. They had demonstrated a daring that excited him, his heart pumped with outrage on behalf of the rioters whose courage before authority had been met with such brutality. Now, in the darkness of Belvedere, he pondered what it was about the chief inspector that seemed to him so familiar. As a gecko clucked loudly on the wall, he realized with a start that the inspector resembled a man at Great World Amusement Park, who Howard would never forget. Not long before his father died, they had gone together to the Great World. Howard loved these outings to the amusement park, with its shooting galleries, eating stalls, theatres, musicians, and the excitement of the boxing ring. In the cavernous dance hall, the taxi girls with red lips and high heels danced the mummy with men. The moving bodies of the swaying couples were pressed together as one. Some women had skirts slit high up to their thigh. Others wore gowns exposing their cleavage. Howard's hands became clammy, and the muscles of his legs grew tight as he stared into this tawdry world. A band played in a dark corner, and the music ran wildly through him. The strong odor of beer and cigarettes accompanied a licentiousness he recognized but could not frame in words. "I'll bring you here when you're older. We'll find a real beauty for you to dance with," his father laughed that day. Howard had been allowed to have 2 rounds at the shooting gallery and to buy a stick of candy floss in an unhealthy shade of pink. His father drank a couple of beers and Howard an orange squash, and eventually they made their way to the lavatories. These were situated to one side of Great World and were modern and clean, with the novelty of a change pool that released a flush of water. In Upper Serangoon, they were still visited each morning by the honey cart with its odorous buckets. When Howard went out with his mother, he was still young enough to go with her into the ladies' lavatories of public places. But that day at Great World, he was proud to be out alone with his father and enter the door not gently. Inside the lavatory, Howard followed his father to the row of urinals. A tall Englishman stood with his back to them, and Charlie Burns took a place beside him. From a skylight, sunlight fell on the Englishman's grey head and his father's chestnut hair, and burnished the fountain released from the Englishman to an arc of liquid gold. The remaining urinal lay in shadow, and Howard positioned himself before it. He noticed with pride that his father's skin, in spite of some cricket under the sun, was paler in shade than the bronzed and leathery skin of the other man. He looked more English than the Englishman. At last the man buttoned up his fly and nodded to Charlie in a friendly manner. Then, as he turned away, his gaze settled on Howard, who was still struggling to undo his shorts, and he stopped abruptly. Stepping forward with a frown, and grasping Howard by the scruff of the neck, he began to shout, "You're not allowed in here, you dark-skinned rascal. If you were older, I'd call the police." Shocked by the sudden attack, Howard cowered in terror, sure the man was going to hit him. Instead, dragging Howard roughly forward, he frog-marched him to the door. Before being ejected into the noisy clamour of Great World, Howard turned in mute appeal to his father. Charlie Burns stood rigid at the urinal, his face turned away, his eyes on the wall before him, and uttered not a word. Outside, the Englishman wagged a threatening finger at Howard as he strode away. Howard stared after him in confusion. His bladder was full, and his shorts opened to expose him. More than the shock of expulsion, was his father's refusal to acknowledge him. His throat constricted, and he thought he might cry before the closed face of the door. "Sorry, son," his father whispered when at last he emerged from the lavatory. He pointed to the door next to the one he now shut behind him. "That's the door for you." And me, of course, that man really knew. He thought I was a whitey like him. Charlie chuckled, delighted, directing Howard's attention to a higher level. He pointed out the word Europeans above the door from which he had just emerged, and the sign others over the door to which he now pushed Howard. He did not accompany his son inside this alternative toilet, but waited outside, lighting up a cigarette, leaning up against the wall.
English writers from Singapore and the surrounding region. So I hope that as the evening progresses, all of you will participate to make it a really vital, happy, exciting exchange and conversation. Now, for something I call upon you just to say a few words about your book, by way of introducing your book.
Oh, I thought I was here to introduce you.
Introduce your book first, and then you can introduce it. Yeah.
Hi everyone. I'm Siok. I'm a one-book writer, trying desperately to make sure that I write another one. I'm an accidental writer. I wrote on my father-in-law, Dr. Goh Kim Swee. I had not meant to write a book, actually. One day, my 7-year-old son came into my room and said, "Was Agong an important person?" And I said, "Well, he's your grandfather, so he's an important person." I said, "Why do you ask?" He said, "Well, I went to the bird park and I saw grandfather's name. I went to the school, went to the zoo, and he saw grandfather's name. And then suddenly I realized that there's a 17-year gap between my older boy and the younger one. And the younger one doesn't know his grandfather much. So I said, all right, one day I'll write something for you so that you know who is your grandfather." So it was meant to be a family album, a photo album, but as things progressed, my friends wouldn't allow that. They said it had to be expanded. And so it became a mini biography of Dr. Goh. So I've only written one book of non-fiction. I've often envied Meira. I knew Meira through a friend and started reading her choice of evils. And I love the chapter on Emperor Hirohito and his childhood, in a way explaining how different he is from his cousin. Many facts were there that I didn't know that could explain what the emperor did or did not do during the war in Japan. And it was like, wow, so it was almost like it was an inspiration for me. And I approached my mini biography the same way. As a biographer, you must reveal as much as you can of the person, his motivations, what influenced him. Sometimes it's speculation, but at least there should be the reader should have a much better sense of the person after reading the book. When I knew Meira through a friend, I often envied her because I've only done non-fiction. And she writes a lot of fiction and creative fiction. And I always felt that, if you are seized by some inspiration, if you're a fiction writer, you could go off somewhere and write intensively. Whereas if you are doing a biography, you can't do that. Because you are surrounded by all your research materials, and you're always checking for dates. Even as you write 2 paragraphs, and you say, no, that's not right. Chronologically, it's not correct. So I always felt that I couldn't go away, and write a book. And I particularly am quite enthralled by the fact that fiction writers, there's a lot of direct speech in fiction, okay? He said this, she said that, they said that. And I'm not good with dialogues. That's how I feel anyway. And this is a question that I would like to pose to Meira to start the conversation going. How does one approach dialogues? Because the dialogue have to reveal a lot about the person speaking, whether he's lying, all the nuances, and you want to convey something of what is to come, perhaps. So maybe, Meira, could you share with us how you approach dialogues? Does it, all your dialogues, does it just come naturally?
Thank you, Siok. I would like to say that Siok is a complete inspiration to me. We've all heard of Renaissance men, but Siok is a Renaissance woman. She has done so many things in her life. From first-class degrees to becoming a barrister, civil servant.
Jack of all trades.
No. And now she's learning the violin. So I think it's quite incredible. I'm one of those people that's forever trying to stop the world and get off. But Siok is one of those people that makes the world go round. So she's a tremendous inspiration in that way. To your question of dialogue, Siok, dialogue is a very funny thing. In fiction, at least, it has three kinds of reasons for it being there. One, visually, it's very nice. It breaks up a page of dense text. But it's also a vehicle in which information is conveyed and a story is moved along, often through that information. And I think one of the things that I found anyway in my sort of mentoring of younger writers, one of the things younger writers always do is they think, they hear a conversation in their head and they've got to put everything down on the page. But actually, less is more as far as dialogue is concerned. And you actually, from what you hear in your head, you need only a few very essential words that are absolutely essential to the information you want to convey. So I think one has to learn to be absolutely brutal with dialogue and just cut away everything but the essential words that you need. Does that any help? Yes.
It occurred to me that.
Yes. If you look at the dialogue in novels, you will see there's not much wastage there. You know, when we're talking naturally, we throw in so many words, but actually what we're saying is just perhaps a few words that are essential.
Maybe that's why sometimes the dialogues in some books are a little bit
Yes.
Yes. It's like sometimes you feel that's not how you talk normally.
Well, the thing is that when you're putting dialogue on the page, you have to be very artificial. Because if you really put how people talk, it's all irrelevant to what you need on the page. So a very good person to look at is a writer who's now no longer in fashion. That's somebody from, I think she was in 30s, 40s, 50s, someone called Ivy Compton Burnett. Most of her books are all conversation. And it's quite a revelation to look at those books and see how she handles conversation and how a whole story is told through conversation and not a wasted word.